Welcome to Forensic Friday. Oh my god, I am still wearing my pimple patches. Let's suck it, you guys. Yeah, it's that time of the month, so my face is hideous per usual. Welcome to Forensic Friday, where I tell you one true crime case that was solved using forensic science, all while doing, and that's right, my makeup. Today's video will be featuring the ABH Norvina Volume 1 palette. I spent like 65 freaking buckaroos on this palette when it first came out, and I literally haven't used it once. So I thought now is a good time to go ahead and get some use out of it. You guys remember the show called Svengoolie? It was like on the CW, I think it was like channel 26. And it was pretty much this guy who would wear a crap ton of makeup and he would make these jokes. He would play horror films but also make these really corny, cheesy jokes during his horror films. I feel like I'm a Svengoolie in a way, like another Svengoolie. Comment down below if you guys know what I'm talking about, if you remember that show, if you ever watched that show. I know it used to come on at a weird hour at night, so maybe some of you don't know what that is, but yeah. All of the other items I'm using in this video will be linked in the description below. Please read the disclaimer. I'm in no way, shape, or form a professional on any of the topics I'm talking about today. I am not a professional makeup artist. I am not a professional medical detective. I'm just the average girl at home like you, planning my makeup and talking about true crime. So if you love true crime and makeup with a little bit of comedy sprinkled in here and there on a very sensitive topic, then make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future episodes. And let's get into today's case. This all takes place in a small town called Hamilton, Ohio in 1996. Hamilton, Ohio is like a very small suburban town in Ohio, and a lot of people go here to like settle down and stuff. It is said to have a population of, well, then it had a population of about 62,000 people. So this was a pretty like small to decent sized town. A lot of families lived in this area. This was a very green area. It had a lot of forests and wildlife and ponds and lakes and streams and stuff like that. A lot of beautiful nature, outdoorsy type stuff. Tell me why my skin looks like a freaking lizard. Oh, I know, because I only spent 15 hours in the effing sun this past weekend. So yeah, if you see me start to peel like a freaking reptile, stranger things have happened. How about that? On August 7th of 1996, two young boys, 12-year-old Tim Leon and his friend TJ Dijon, I think that's how you say it. So the two boys headed to Linden Lake to do some afternoon of fishing and to just hang out like, you know, regular normal boys do. So the two boys went to this lake to do some fishing, and they were just, you know, fishing, hoping to catch some catfish or some bluetail. The boys were fishing, you know, just and then all of a sudden they catch something and they start reeling in what they think is like a catfish or some sort of fish. But instead of reeling in a fish, they actually end up reeling in what appeared to be a human skull. So obviously the boys are like in shock and kind of wondering like, is this real? Is this a real human skull? So they ended up leaving the skull on the bank and rushing back home to tell their parents, you know, hey, we found this human skull, or what appears to be a real human skull. And at first their parents did not believe them. They were like, you just goofing around, making up, you know, jokes and stuff like, you know, most kids do. They were just like, look, we don't have time for this. Stop joking around. It's not cute. It's not funny. And it really wasn't, because it really was a real human skull. it was a pretty unbelievable story, to be honest. So the next day, the boys went back to check to see if the skull was like still there. I don't know, maybe it had disappeared or something. It was a figment of their imagination. But when they got back, sure enough, the skull was still there. And so the boys, being really concerned, which is more than I can say for their parents, okay, decided to contact the police because they just felt like at this point they needed to alert the police and make the police aware of this. And I just want to say hats off to those boys. Good job. Good job, little Timmy, and good job, little TJ. Hats off to them, you know, for having more sense than their actual grown-ups in the situation. It's peeling, it's peeling, it's peeling, it's peeling. Is it okay to put makeup on top of your skin if you got sunburn and it's peeling? I don't know. Somebody let me know, because I'm definitely doing it right now, and I guess we're gonna find out. So a whole day had passed when the boys had gone back and the skull was still there. So at this point, they decided to contact the police on their own. And the first officer that came down there was not a good word. He was pretty much a dickhead, a dickety dickhead. He was like, when he got down there, he was kind of just looking around, and then he saw the skull and he threw a rock at it. Like, what type of officer, investigator, what type of person in general throws a rock at a human skull? At an unidentified human skull? I just feel like that is so disrespectful on so many levels. But anyway, this cop was disrespectful AF. He threw a rock at the skull and was pretty much like, yeah, it's real. Now we gotta open a whole big old investigation. I mean, wow. Like, making it out to be as if it was the boys' fault that they had to do an investigation and not the fact that there is a human skull here. Like, pretty much treating the boys like they had done something wrong for discovering this skull, which obviously was not their fault. They were just fishing and it came up. It's not like they went out looking for a human skull. Like, who goes out looking for a human skull, sir? You really think that they did that on purpose? Like, oh, I don't know. I'm just disgusted with this cop. You guys, are you gonna blame the witnesses for discovering the body? You should be thanking them, not blaming them. It's not their fault. But anyway, this dickhead of a cop, I don't know why I just got an image of like an actual dickhead and what that would look like, and it's pretty interesting stuff. Anyway, this dickhead of a cop, you know, called out the other investigators to come out to investigate the case. This cop just kept cussing out the boys like they had done something wrong, making them feel like, you know, they shouldn't have found it and they shouldn't have called them down there and things like that. But in about 20 minutes, the boys say that the entire police force was down at that bank looking at that skull. Oh my God, I feel like there's not enough makeup to cover up my ugly face today. I'm just kidding, I'm cute. So the investigators brought in scuba divers. They had boats down at the lake. They were searching for any other possible clues as well as other body parts possibly. So the scuba divers couldn't find any other body parts in the lake. Search of the immediate areas also turned up nothing, so yeah. So they took the skull to the coroner's office where the local coroner examined the skull, and because there were still some soft tissue clinging on to the skull, the coroners determined that the person had not been in the lake for that long, maybe just a few weeks. But to investigators, this was a huge mystery because they did not know where to look. They just had a skull, and to them, this could be the skull of anything could have happened to this person. It could have just been like a transient that passed away, and their remains were maybe carried or moved by wild animals, or they just kind of somehow got into the lake. So it wasn't any evidence that there was foul play here. It could have been anything that had occurred to this person at that point. They were even thinking that it could be that somebody had gone in and robbed a grave out in the country and, brought the skulls back there. I don't know why anybody would do that though, and I don't know how many people they had in that area robbing graves, because that's strange that they would hop to that conclusion. But they were just thinking, like, at this point they were just lost. Like they didn't know where to start and where to begin. It could have been anything, So at this point, investigators were wondering, who was this person and how did he or she die, and where were the rest of the body parts? Medical detectives needed some help. They needed some real assistance in determining the identity of this skull. So the coroner sent the skull over to the College of Mount St. Joseph outside of Cincinnati. So they sent it to a board certified forensic anthropologist, and this anthropologist was one of only 63 forensic anthropologists in the state at that time. Oh my God, what is happening? Do you guys see this? This is like makeup gone wrong today. And I don't know if it's because of my period. I feel like I have the period curse, when just everything seems to go wrong because it's your period. Like anything that could possibly make you look any better is just like, no, it's not gonna happen because you're on the period curse. So I'm gonna wipe all of this off, start over, and come back to you guys. So this forensic pathologist, or anthropologist, I believe her name was Beth something or another. She found the case particularly interesting and intriguing because it was terrifying. I think she even says that it was just such a terrifying case, something like she had never seen before. She describes it as one of the most terrifying cases that she's ever encountered in her career. Oh, I'm just hoping that my whole entire forehead doesn't start to peel off in front of you guys, because that would be really embarrassing. And it is. So I think it is gonna be an embarrassment. So while she was examining the skull, she noticed this really deep indentation on the top of the skull, which suggested to her that the killer had used some sort of large knife, like a cleaver or a machete or something, to cut into the skull. And she found many other cuts and scratches all over the skull. So as she's, examining the skull, and she's realizing that, someone sat here with this skull and defleshed it. It's just so shocking that someone actually sat there and with this head in their hands and tried to deflesh this human skull. And this was particularly terrifying to her, as it would be to anybody. I mean, that is really terrifying. I can't lie. That's extremely terrifying. As she was examining the skull, she found that the nose cavity of the skull had an indication that it was a Caucasian person. The skull's nose cavity was indicative of that of a Caucasian person. So she was able to determine that the victim was Caucasian. Isn't that insane? Just from the nose cavity, they were able to tell that. I mean, but of course, because everybody's facial features are different. So they fed all of the information that they found from this human skull into a computer, and the computer was able to determine that the skull was that of a female, so it was a woman's head. So she was able to tell that the victim was a woman that was under 35 years of age because of the sutures where the skull bone comes together, the natural skull bone comes together. And these tend to close with age, and hers were not completely closed yet. So that is how they were able to tell the age of the victim. Also, the evidence suggested that someone had used a lot of different types of tools on this skull. Somebody was really trying to conceal this woman's identity. Like, they did not want it to be known who she was at all. The evidence also showed that whoever had, mutilated the victim used a serrated knife because they found indentations on the human skull that mimicked that of a serrated knife blade. It appeared someone had used a kitchen steak knife because it had been dragged along the side of the skull. Cut marks on the cheekbone revealed that the jaw had been forcefully removed, possibly with a small pocket knife. Also, there was several puncture wounds in the eye sockets, which indicated that the killer had removed the victim's eyes. Jesus Christ. That is one thing that really freaks me out. Like, just don't touch my eyeballs, please. The teeth, you guys, were also missing. So there was a broken tooth root in the upper jaw of the skull, which told the forensic anthropologist that the teeth had been deliberately removed. He's just doing the worst. That's just the worst. The eyes and the teeth, I am really trying to save this look, you guys, but I'm just feeling like it probably won't be saved. The forensic anthropologist said that when she would hold the bones at a specific angle, she could actually see marks in the bones where pliers were used. And some people shouldn't even have toolboxes. She said it was so clear you could see where the pliers had been inserted and the teeth had been just snapped out. I mean, ooh, painful, painful, painful. I know half of us is going to be rescheduling that dentist appointment for next week after this story. Trust me. Now, the forensic anthropologist hesitated to talk to the police and the investigators about her suspicions and her findings because she just thought, like, they're not gonna believe this. Like, this is such an unbelievable case. Like, who would believe this? And she just felt like she didn't have enough physical evidence to back up her suspicions, that she was like, who's gonna believe me? So she actually ended up sending out the skull to a number of other different forensic scientists for them to do tests on to see what their findings was first before she went to the investigators on the case and police and let them know her findings and her thoughts, which I think is actually smart. I think she was just trying to make sure that she wasn't crazy like most of us. Like, you know what I mean? When you find something really ridiculous and you're like, okay, I just need to know that I'm not crazy before I go and say something. Even though police knew that the skull that they found in Linden Lake was that of a Caucasian woman under the age of 35, they didn't have anything else. They didn't know anything else about this victim. At this point, police knew that the woman's teeth and flesh had been removed to conceal her identity. So for that reason, they automatically suspected foul play. So police checked their missing persons database and they found that only 4 people had been recently reported missing. One of those individuals were 21-year-old Tina Mott. Now, Tina Mott was reported missing just 2 months before the skull had been found in the lake. Now, Tina Mott was a single mother. She had an 18-year-old 18-year-old? No, she did not at 21 have an 18-year-old. She had an 18-month-old baby named Johnny. She had been living on a quiet residential street in an upstairs apartment. She was living in this apartment with her son Johnny and her 24-year-old boyfriend named Tim. I wanted to say Tim Burton. It was not Tim Burton. She would be so lucky if it was. She lived in this apartment with her son and her 24-year-old boyfriend Tim Bradford. Now, Tina Mott had moved from New York, which is where she was originally from. She had met her boyfriend Tim while selling magazines door to door. Girl, those are some brows there. I can't even speak. Speechless, speechless, that's how you make me feel. So they decided to, get together and settle down in Tim's hometown. And settle down in Tim's hometown, Tina got a job at the local store. Guys, I don't know how to explain my brows to anyone. I don't even know how to explain it to myself, much less anyone else. So Tina worked as a clerk at this grocery store in Hamilton. Now Tim, he was a framer at an art shop called Mott. Now when police questioned Tim, he told them that Tina had gone back to New York and left her baby behind. What the F? Like, really, no one's gonna freaking believe that. No one's leaving their baby behind, dude. No one's gonna believe that. Apparently, she wanted to go back to New York to visit her parents. And yeah, she just decided to leave her 18-month-old baby behind. I don't think so. Maybe I'm just overprotective. I don't know. I also don't have children. I just feel like I would never even leave my children behind like that. I wouldn't even leave him with his father like that either. And of course, police soon discovered that Tina Mott never actually reached New York. Tina was reported missing, but not by her own family. She was reported missing by Tim's mother. Her name was Elizabeth Bradford. So first, Tim's mom, Elizabeth, thought that maybe she was, up in New York, but when she called up to New York to see if Tina was there and found out that she wasn't, she soon realized that something was very wrong here because Tina would never leave her baby alone. Elizabeth also told police that she was terrified of her son's temper, that he had a terrible temper. Not only that, that he was into satanic rituals and he worshipped Satan. He was a Satan worshiper and he was into worshiping the devil. Sounds like we got our guy. I don't know. What do you guys think? Now it's time to go into the palette. But anyway, back to the story. That actually scared me a little bit. So police got a warrant to search Tim's storage unit that he had rented shortly after Tina's disappearance. Inside, they found a set of 19 kitchen knives. These kitchen knives were a variety of different sized serrated blades. Police also found a very bizarre book on how to kill with your bare hands. It was called, what was that freaking book called? I don't even want to tell you guys because I don't want nobody going out to the library and picking this up, okay? But I'll just tell some of you anyway. I believe it was called DMOC, the death striking or something like that or another. I don't know. You shouldn't even want to know, honestly, because yeah, you just need to forget that information that I put out there because I don't want anybody doing that. Just please don't. Please, please, please don't. There's definitely better hobbies out there. Another thing that police found really suspicious was Tim Bradford's behavior after Tina had gone missing. He was seen withdrawing money from Tina's bank account shortly after she had disappeared. And police just thought like this was bizarre. Like, why would, if he knew that she was up in New York, why would he just not ask her or wait for her or like Like, what the hell was he doing at an ATM withdrawing money out of her account? He must have knew that she was not coming back, or he must have had some contact with her. They also found out that Tim used drugs, which I'm not surprised. Now, according to co-workers of Tina had, told them, she confided them, saying that she was afraid of Tim when he was on these drugs because he would get really angry and he would just lash out and act like a completely different person. And it was terrifying. She could not do anything about it. I thought this was gonna be orange, and it's literally going on my eye red. Here, I'll just keep packing orange on. Next thing police did was to search the couple's apartment. Inside of their apartment, they conducted a luminol test. Luminol is a chemical that is sprayed onto a surface. Basically, when you spray luminol onto a surface and you use a black light, this can reveal blood that may have been there that was cleaned up. It can also reveal chemicals that was used in the cleaning up of a crime scene, like to clean up blood and stuff. It can also reveal fingerprints as well. It glows. On the living room carpet, they found blood that appeared to be human. They also found blood in the bathroom along the lining of the tub, in between the lining of the tub and the floor, where the tub and the floor connects, if that makes sense. I'm probably not making sense because, again, the period curse makes me very absent-minded, makes me forget a lot of things. They also found blood near the toilet. At this point, police suspected that the Linden Lake skull was that of Tina Mott. Unfortunately, they needed more. They didn't have enough scientific evidence to prove it, but they were going to get their evidence real soon. So police resorted to dental x-ray to identify the skull. Dental identification is one of the strongest ways to identify a body. Now, this is especially helpful because no two set of teeth are the same. But unfortunately, the lower jaw of the skull was missing, so how the heck were they gonna identify her by dental records when they didn't even have the teeth? It was very, very complicated, and police were growing tired of trying to figure out this entire thing, like how to go about it. Also, her upper teeth had all been pulled out as well. But investigators found another way of identification. It's called skull photograph supercomposition. Now, how this works is an anthropologist takes a photograph of the skull, then they superimpose it over a photograph of the missing person, trying to match up the facial characteristics. Other techniques attempt to put a face on the skull by using sculptures. This technique uses facial reconstructing and forensic sculpture. Wow, I didn't even know that forensic scientists did like sculpting as well. They're like artists too. Wow, that's amazing. I had no idea. Technically, you can be an artist and also be a forensic scientist. That is like so cool. I always get geeked out about these things, I feel like. It is said that forensic anthropologists have only had a 70% success rate with these techniques. Now, the reason why they have only had a 70% success rate with these types of techniques is because of areas on the face like the lips, the eyes, and the ears. The eyelids are not necessarily indicated by the shape of the skull. So it's pretty much you'd have to guess what some of the facial features were. And investigators usually only resort to these techniques when all other techniques have been exhausted and they don't have any other choice. It's pretty much their last resort. But in this case, with the Linden Lake skull, scientists finally got a genetic break. So they discovered that the killer had removed all but 2 of the wisdom teeth that had been embedded into the gum. It's possible that because it was embedded into the gum that the killer did not see it because the gums were covering it. And you know, we're always told to get our wisdom teeth removed. I thank God I have all my wisdom teeth in. Now, the forensic anthropologist, the lead one that was on the case, she extracted tooth pulp from the wisdom teeth and sent them off for DNA testing. She also sent in a blood sample from Tina's 18-month-old son, Johnny. When trying to identify a body that they're unable to identify, they will often use DNA from family members to link all the pieces to prove that that is the actual person. So if the tooth sample matches the blood sample from a little baby Johnny, then obviously it's his mother, or someone that is related to him. We can assume it's his mother because why? She's the only one that have been missing. But sadly, scientists could not get a usable DNA profile from the pulp that was pulled from the teeth. Oh, it's just like so many things in the way. So according to this forensic pathologist, it's possible that the reason why they could not get a DNA profile, because the teeth were wisdom teeth, they were still forming, meaning that they had open cavities. They also theorized that tiny single-cell microorganisms that were in the water, these microorganisms are called diatoms, and they believe that these diatoms could have possibly altered the cells in the teeth pulp. So as a last result, this forensic anthropologist, she was not giving up, decided to conduct her own little theory, and she drilled a hole into the top of the skull as an attempt to extract the DNA herself. These lashes are entirely too big. I think I also might have put them on backwards. Maybe? It appears so. Oh well. Oh, this thing is so long. It's like tickling the top of my eyelids. So she carefully, with a surgical drill, drilled into the skull and removed 6 bone samples. The skull bone fragments were sent for mitochondrial DNA testing. Now, they only use this technique in cases where the biological sample is small or pretty much non-existent, or for whatever reason, you know, damaged or something. So the mitochondrial DNA is unique because, according to forensic pathologists, it is only passed through maternal bloodline and you can only receive it from your mother. Forensic pathologists compared the samples. Finally, police got a break in the case when the mitochondrial DNA from the skull matched the mitochondrial DNA of little Johnny Mott. This meant that the skull was none other than Tina Mott, his mother. Not only that, but one of the knives found in the storage unit that was rented by Tina Mott's live-in boyfriend, Tim, had deposits of human protein on them, meaning like human meat or flesh. So as you can imagine, police is like, we got our guy. We about to go back out there and get little Timmy Tucker, and we're about to bring him up in here for questioning because he did it. So police bring Tim back down to the police station for questioning a second time. I mean, at this point, it's pretty obvious. So the police asked him straight up, like, do you know how to hunt? He says yes. They then say, do you know how to dissect and skin an animal? And he admits to it. He's like, yes. As though to say, like, duh, everyone does, you know? This would be his downfall. He should have played stupid at this point. I would have been like, no, I don't know nothing. But probably he wasn't thinking that they suspected him, and that's the reason why he said that. He also probably didn't think that they knew how he had murdered Tina. He even admitted that he knew how to dispose of the internals of an animal, like the internal organs of an animal. He told them that he had learned that all through his childhood and growing up. He had learned how to do this. It was something that was pretty normal in their household, so he actually didn't think it was that suspicious at all. You was smart enough to do all of that, and you was not smart enough to say you didn't know jack shit when they asked you. After hours of, interrogation, finally Tim Bradford confessed and told police this horrific story of what happened to Tina that night. Tim led investigators to a nature preserve that was about 10 miles or so away from where the couple lived. I don't know if I pulled this off. I was going for a kind of creamsicle eye look, like a real summer vibe. I don't know. I just kind of got this idea in my head of like a tanned girl at a salon getting her nails done, like these crazy, outrageously long, boxy square nails in like this bright neon orange color. And yeah, I don't know why, but that's summer to me. So Tim led the police to this little area, and underneath a bushel they found Tina's bones scattered throughout the area. But unfortunately, after about 14 months of the body sitting there, animals had gotten a hold of it, and only about half of Tina's remains were recovered. Now, every bone that they found cut marks on it, so they had been cut by either a knife or some sort of hacksaw or machete. According to Tim, on the night of the murder, he and Tina were playing Monopoly. He did admit to using some pretty heavy drugs that night, and he said that at some point during the evening, they had gotten into an argument. According to Tim, he and Tina were so heated in this argument that he hit Tina in the face and ended up giving her a bloody nose. She then went to the bathroom while he cleaned up the area. He started to pick up the Monopoly game and put things away. There was also some fishing gear that he had used earlier during the day that he was also putting away. When Tina, he says, allegedly, Tina ran out of the bathroom at him, still angry, and wanted to continue the altercation. This is when he turned around and in his heat of rage, he slit her throat. He claims that he did not mean to do it. It was not planned. It was just he was in the middle of putting his fishing gear away. It just so happened that he had the knife in his hand. According to him, it was a fish fillet knife that he had in his hand. According to him, he left the apartment, and when he returned, Tina's body was somehow in the tub, and he has no recollection as to how Tina's body actually got in the tub. He says this he has no idea of, because when he left the apartment, Tina was in the living room on the floor. I can only speculate that because he was on drugs, he may not remember this part. He may have had some sort of psychotic episode and blocked this part out of how he maybe transported her body from the living room into the bathroom tub. That's my theory. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments down below. What is your theory? What do you think actually happened? That's what I think. He was on drugs. So at this point, he told police that he worked throughout the entire night to dismember her body, to cut all the pieces up, to deflesh her skull. I can barely say that. To deflesh her skull. He claims that he flushed her internal organs down the toilet. How does a person, I just can't fathom, I can't wrap my head around how a person could actually go through with something like that and do it, not just do it on like a stranger, but do it on someone that you claim and profess to love, like who is the mother of your child, someone that you actually know. I have to take a minute, because I feel like, how do you have the stomach to do that, dude? Like, I don't know. And then the other thought that's in my head is, where's little baby Johnny while all this is going on? Is he in the room? Is he out of the other room? He said he left and he came back, so where's the baby? Did he see this? Did he hear this? Like, Tim admitted to using all 19 of the kitchen knives that were found in their home to dismember the body. He also told police that he did in fact use needle nose pliers to pull her teeth. He said he did all this to prevent her from being identified by her dental records. The fact that he even thought this up and this type of stuff was turning through his head makes me question if he had murdered someone else before. You gotta cut through skin, flesh, and bone and cartilage to cut off the human head. At the first place, that had to be super difficult. And then to hold the human head in your hand and to deflesh it and pluck the teeth from the skull, I'm mystified. Like, I don't even know if mystified is not the right word for that. According to him, he then carried the dismembered body parts in a plastic bag in his backpack to where he thought was a deserted field and started to get rid of the pieces of the body. Later that night, he said that he went to Linden Lake and threw the skull into the water. I don't understand why he didn't just throw all the pieces away together, why he separated them, but I guess it was just to make it harder for police to figure it out. But yeah, to go back later and to carry her head with you in your backpack and then toss it into the lake like a fucking pebble, like just boop. I can't, you guys. I'm done. Some of these stories really get to me and I'm just like, I'm not doing any more of these stories because I'm so done. Like, what the hell? And I'm laughing because it's such an uncomfortable subject and it's like, it's unimaginable. So there's nothing to do but like, what can you do with that? But hats off to those two boys because without them, the skull would have never been found and this investigation would have never been opened and started and the case would have never been solved. So they did an amazing job. Now, once news got out about Tim Bradford, as you can imagine, the townspeople were so shocked by this news, and Tim's boss could not fathom that she had this cold-blooded killer as one of her employees that entire time. She actually says during her interview that he seemed like a regular guy. He would go out and do things that a regular guy would, like partying here and there, but that she knew that he really had issues with Tina and that he really did want to get out of that situation with Tina. But for him to do all the things that he did to her, like the dismemberment, she couldn't believe it. She never would have thought that he would have done something like that. Now in court, Tim Bradford didn't have really any reason for why he killed Tina. All he told the court was that he loved her and that he was sorry. Thanks to forensic science and some good police work and two little 12-year-old boys, Tim Bradford was convicted of voluntary manslaughter and abuse of a corpse. He was sentenced to 12 to 25 years in prison. What did you guys think about this case and my makeup look? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you like videos like these, check out my last episode. I'll leave it linked on the screen or right here or right here. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next Friday with another Forensic Friday episode. Bye!